Cheaters never prosper, unless they have the right codes, and then they prosper a lot. You can prosper too by marking your calendar for Friday, August 2nd from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific. I will be streaming a very particular set of video games in my library. The retro games I love to cheat on. Those special games from my past that I really enjoyed but would never have played without invincibility, infinite time, infinite health, or infinite lives. Sure, you can get good, but I'd rather, have fun. I mean, these are video games we're talking about, right? You can come and watch me stay bad on Friday, August 2nd from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific at youtube.com/ChristianGeekCentral. For the purposes of this content, best shall be defined as most preferred by Peter Franson when compared to a limited sample of alternatives. Hey guys, Peter Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. Right now, I'm going to present to you, definitively, the 7 best trailers and headlines from ComiCon 2019. I didn't go to ComiCon, but I, like many of you, enjoy checking out the news and highlights and trailers and things that come out of that event. And there was definitely some things that caught my interest. I'm going to be going through a list of 7 things in order of increasing interest. All of these things interest me, but they increasingly interest me the closer we get to my number 1. Now, spoiler warning on all of these. As soon as I mention what I'm going to talk about, which is going to be a trailer or a headline or whatever, you are responsible, if you don't want to be spoiled, to pause and go watch the trailer for the first time yourself, or see the headlines for the first time yourself, or whatever experience you want to have before listening to my comments. That is on you. All right. So, without further ado, number 7 on my list is Brandon Routh's Superman, returning to the screen at the CW. In the Arrowverse, there's going to be a story event this season in the CW DC superhero shows. I think it's going to be Crisis on Infinite Earths, if I'm not mistaken. But Routh, when talking about it at the panels, was wearing a Kingdom Come emblem t-shirt when he was at the panels, and so there maybe would be room for him to be thought of as the same Superman that was in Superman Returns, which he played, maybe in like our head canon, but I doubt they're going to make that official or explicit. It's likely just kind of a gimmick, like, hey, this actor used to play Superman, let's have him play an alternate reality version of Superman, but they're not going to, I think, come out and make it clear that, oh no, this is the Superman from Superman Returns, but hopefully they'll leave it vague enough that if people want to interpret it that way, they'll be able to. There won't be anything in the script that prohibits that interpretation, that maybe after the events of Superman Returns down the line, things went super south for him. But it looks like he's going to be playing this really hardened and jaded version of Superman that's, from Kingdom Come. So it's what strikes me as being another gimmick in a long line of what have come across to me as gimmicks from the CW, where it's like, hey, they're bringing back John Wesley Shipp as the Flash, or they're doing all these other things. They do and promote these real comic book fan service type things, and dang, they really do fan service well in that regard. I wish that those CW shows had more substance in the writing and just a different flavor of acting, and not as much product in everyone's hair and gloss on everyone's lips or whatever they got going on over there that makes it all feel very artificial to me. Anyway, that was still definitely newsworthy to me, and I'll probably tune in to at least watch a clip of that episode. All right, my number 7 is the Snowpiercer TV Series. That is coming in spring 2020, and they put a trailer up. Now, I saw the Chris Evans movie, and I did enjoy it. I'm not sure if the concept has enough for a whole TV series of multiple seasons, I'm also not sure that I'm going to be interested in something that's going to be driven by a political message, which is the vibe I get from the trailer, and the original movie had, those kind of political messaging things involved as well. I prefer, personally, human drama and moral dilemma over a preachy, like, political metaphor. I'm always more interested in things that have to do with human nature, human moral dilemmas that really can be universal no matter what kind of a political camp you're coming from. But my wife and I do like Jennifer Connelly. She used to get compared to Jennifer Connelly quite a bit, and so we just kind of have like this little pseudo-nostalgic kind of place in our hearts for, there's my wife, there you are, Holly, so I mean, it has me curious about the show. And I do like her, I guess, as an actress, and it looks like it's going to have some serious and dramatic weight to it, which is something that I always appreciate in my fiction. So hopefully the sci-fi side of things will be conceptually interesting too, that they'll delve into exploring the nature of what this life is and how it works and why it makes sense for them to be on this train and stuff like that. So my number 5 item is Star Trek Picard, coming to CBS Early Access, which is a streaming service, if you didn't know, in early 2020. When I first heard about this, I was like, oh man, is this going to be like just Patrick Stewart sitting in a chair telling stories about the old days? I mean, it's like, how are they going to make this interesting and compelling? And I sensed that it was probably going to be character driven, but I was like, but how do you also make it dramatic and intense and all those other things, rather than just an older man reminiscing about the glory days or whatever? I'm really pleased with what I saw. It's definitely not what I would have expected, I guess. They are adding younger actors into the cast who are going to be there to do the action, while Jean-Luc Picard watches from a distance, as we already kind of see some of that happening in the trailer. So I think that's a good thing for a show like this, to have action. Anytime you can inject like legit action into Star Trek, I think that helps it. I don't think it takes away from even what classic Star Trek is, to have good, intense action in it. And I think also having an older character as the centerpiece of a movie or a TV series in this case is awesome. We are so youth obsessed in our entertainment that I think it's really valuable anytime you can get someone who is older, even just in their 40s and 50s is nice, but to have someone of Patrick Stewart's age, which is probably like in his 70s or 80s by now, I'm not sure, I think is just fantastic to have them as the center, and to just give us a model of hopefully a character, a reason in our minds to say, what, we shouldn't discount people that are older than us. They may have some wisdom, some experience that we can benefit from. So anytime you can have that kind of thing going on in a show, I think that's great. The first time I saw the trailer, the ComiCon trailer for Star Trek Picard, I got hairs standing on my arm seeing Data at the end. The second time I watched it, it was a different reaction. I almost had a tear. I suspect that Data is not resurrected in this show, but is rather a metaphorical ghost that's kind of haunting Picard, that Picard has these mental conversations with now and then. I'm pretty sure that's what's going on here. Less preferable to me, but still possible. It could also be, if I remember correctly, you Star Trek fans can clarify this and correct me. There was sort of a reset copy version of Data that didn't have his memories, that still continued to exist at the end of the last Next Generation based Star Trek movie, where he had no memories of any of his time. It was essentially a new, fresh, reset model of Data, so maybe this is that model that stayed with Picard, and they've developed now many more years of history than he would have had with the original Data, and they've developed their own relationship over the years. But I don't think that's the case, because although he didn't say it was literally this mental ghost, Patrick Stewart in an interview did agree that Jean-Luc is, at this point in his life, kind of haunted by the death of Data, and so I really think that gives credence to the idea that this is just a mental kind of idea that he has in his mind, that they are artistically showing us him having conversations with, and either way, Brent Spiner also confirmed in an IGN interview that Data truly did die in that last Next Generation movie, and that he won't be, fans shouldn't think that he's going to be in all or even most episodes of this Picard series. And so I'm really doubtful this is an actual resurrection of that character. And speaking of which, when I talk about him having these mental conversations, that he's having with Data that aren't part of some holodeck experience or some kind of anomaly of the week or whatever. No, they're doing something artistic, and that was not common at all. In if they were going to have a character have a conversation with a dead person, then it would be through some scientific means or some anomaly that they were experiencing or whatever. It wouldn't just be this artistic representation through filmmaking that shows us what he's thinking about in his mind. And so the fact that they're doing that, and I really do think that is the case, and so many other things about this trailer indicated to me, okay, they're going for a totally different filmmaking style than classic 90s Trek, which would now be exemplified in a show like what is that, the whatever that thing is by Seth guy who does Family Guy. I can't remember the Orville, I think it's called. That's right. Anyway, it looks like the style of filmmaking here is going to be more character-driven, more artistic, more dramatic, and have some more weight to it, I guess. So I'm really looking forward to that. We also saw. And 7 of 9 apparently returning, and Jerry Ryan, I believe, is the actress's name, and it looks like she has a very different personality, even from the little snippet that we saw. I hope she's a regular in this series. I kind of doubt it. I'm guessing that the Data angle and the 7 of 9 angle, those will be in kind of like the pilot or the early episodes to kind of get people on board and excited about the show. But then what's really going to carry the show is going to be Picard alone, with whatever new cast they bring to him. So, but yeah, I'm really interested to see what the evolution of her character has been, and what role or connection she has with Picard at this point. Much as I've said in the past that I just can't go back to 90s Trek after the likes of Farscape and Battlestar Galactica. I do have love for these characters. And now we finally get to see them seemingly with these character-driven stories and filming styles that support drama that were really kind of, pioneered by shows like Farscape and Battlestar Galactica. Now, Star Trek is getting the Farscape and Battlestar Galactica treatment, which I think is awesome, And so this is not, it looks like, going to be a show about the space anomaly of the week. It's going to be about a man and his internal struggles and felt responsibilities, but without sacrificing intensity and action and all those kinds of other things that we would naturally want to have, What's interesting to me, Picard is not going to be rejoining Starfleet. Patrick Stewart confirmed that, but instead he's assembling this sort of rogue crew to pursue his own agenda, and I think an agenda that they share in some sense. Stewart said in an interview that the world, talking about our real world, is changing in terrifying ways, and the show will comment on that some. And I'm not sure what he meant by that. My guess would be, as usually seems to be the case when there is a conservative person in the presidential office, then those that are of the liberal political persuasion tend to think very darkly about the world and its situation, and vice versa. When there's a liberal in the president's office, then the conservatives are really concerned about the world. I think, for years, all of it, no matter who's in that chair, has been going downwards. So I don't know what exactly he was referring to, and he said the show will comment on that some. He said it's not going to be heavily like this political show, but Star Trek has commented on modern politics and modern cultural situations in the past, and it's going to continue to do that with this show. I would, again, as I think mentioned a moment ago, prefer politically neutral human commentary about the human condition. And I think, actually, as a little aside, Supergirl, the upcoming season, seems better poised to do that. And there was a trailer for Supergirl that showed and basically talked about how people are so stuck in their devices and they're not connecting with each other anymore. And that's not a political statement. That is politically neutral and is just talking about this problem of the the modern Western world right now, and so stuff like that is a lot more interesting to me for sci-fi and fantasy to kind of comment on. And I also wonder, this is still part of the Roddenberry created Star Trek universe, which was all about a future optimism and a utopia and stuff like that. So is there really going to be room in a Roddenberry inspired utopia for really heavy drama? I don't know. This would be the exception rather than the rule in the past. I think things have changed a bit with Star Trek Discovery, but I haven't kept up with that show. Anyway, time will tell, but I am definitely very interested in Star Trek Picard. My number 4 is Watchmen, which is coming to HBO Now or HBO, whatever their streaming service is, in October. This is apparently a modern day, taking place like today, as a sequel to the original. Now, it's not clear to me if it's a sequel to the movie by the Zack Snyder directed, or a sequel to the comic. I think that there's very little difference between the two. Zack Snyder's movie was very faithful in almost all respects to the comic. So I'm going to say that it's a sequel to the movie, and for me, that has me very interested. You know, Laurie Blake, who was the Silk Spectre in the original Watchmen, is an older FBI agent now that is investigating, you know, whatever the main plot hangs on. And Dr. Manhattan is apparently returning from Mars, as we see indicated in a couple shots briefly in this trailer. And Jeremy Irons is presumably, from what I can tell, it's not confirmed in the trailer, but I think it's got to be the case, that he's playing an older Ozymandias. It definitely looks more grounded visually than the slow-motion spectacle of the Zack Snyder movie. But other than that, it has a very similar look to the production of that movie. You know, as far as colors and lighting contrast and wardrobe and costumes, it really looks like the Snyder movie, which makes me think that it is, in some sense, maybe not officially, intended to be a sequel to that movie. And so, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this, very curious about it, and I suddenly feel like watching the movie again after seeing this trailer. So, yeah, Watchmen, HBO in October. My number 3 is the trailer for The Witcher TV series. I have tried playing all 3 of the Witcher games. I've probably gotten furthest in The Witcher 3. They've just not quite been my cup of tea, although I am thinking of coming back to The Witcher 3 now that I've played some Monster Hunter. I'm thinking, okay, maybe now I'm ready to kind of get what Witcher 3 is wanting me to appreciate about it. So, but The Witcher is coming to Netflix, 8 episodes, and it's coming this year. No date beyond that was given. The production values look legitimately summer blockbuster quality to me. The lighting has some nice heavy contrast that creates, I think, the intended dark atmosphere of this dark fantasy setting. The monster effects looks good to me. I mean, you know, even though they're CG and my eyes are cursed to pick that out, I still thought it looked really good. And they even go practical with some monster effects now and then, which I so appreciate. They're really playing up the fantasy aspects of this world. You know, compared to what my impressions have been of Game of Thrones, I just watched the pilot to that, and I've just seen, you know, clips of trailers and stuff for other stuff, but this seems like they're really leaning more into magic and fantasy than that series likely did. Somebody else can correct me if that's not the case. And I'm all for that. I am all for that, you know. And there's even visible magic. You know, there's some lady shooting a lightning bolt, man. Oh, I was really bummed out when we finally got the Lord of the Rings trilogy, this epic, widely celebrated and accepted fantasy trilogy of movies, and yet the magic was largely invisible, like 2 Jedis fighting each other. I wanted to see freaking purple lightning bolts flying around and, you know, magical shielding and all kinds of stuff like that. And it looks like this is definitely going to be more in the direction of what I want visually from magic in movies and TV shows. So, yeah, I'm very interested. Henry Cavill looks like, to me, Superman dressed up as Geralt. But hopefully that's just me, and I need to give it time for my mind to kind of settle him into this new context. In one shirtless scene, though, he looked almost like a bodybuilder, though. I mean, right for Superman's build, but it seemed a bit too bulky and chunky for this character. I mean, I don't know. Granted, this is their own interpretation of Geralt, and so, you know, they're free to take it wherever they want, but it was just like, oh my gosh, he's made of spheres. That's really weird. Also, it looks like it's going to have a focus on character drama intermixed with fantasy action. That is totally my thing. If I can get both crazy cool geek action and, you know, really weighty character drama and attention to character motives and stuff like that, that is my sweet spot for fiction, baby. But There were hints of sexiness in the trailer. The games are known for their sex scenes and nudity. I haven't read the books to know if they're known for those things as well, but this show is based on the books, not on the video games. But the word is that it's still going to be a show that gets steamy. To what extent is my question, and that could be a deal breaker for me, depending on what the answer is. The showrunner, Lauren Hisrich, says, quote, "It was important to me that any violence or sex drives the story and is not there just for shock value. I think audiences are really savvy and know when we're doing stuff to just shock them versus do stuff that really drives the story." End quote. That statement about shock seems to be more about the violence. I think it would be more applicable to violence. I don't know that when other shows and movies include sex, they do it to shock people. I think they do it to titillate and entice people. So I don't know if that statement applies as much to the way they're going to approach using sex in the movie as it does for violence. It seemed like she maybe more had violence in mind. I don't know. But you know, after a comment like that, I do wonder, could this mean that the sexual content will be minimal, at least compared to shows like Game of Thrones, you know, and other copycats that have, you know, that have exploited sex to, you know, bring viewers in the same way? Could there possibly be sex without explicit nudity? Or does her comment, you know, refer to the fact that sex and nude scenes will also include story simultaneously because they're helping to drive the story or whatever, you know? What commentators have come to call sexposition after what Game of Thrones kind of popularized. That latter case really would be a deal breaker for me. Those kinds of scenes can't be skipped without also missing potentially important story details. And, you know, as much as I love what I'm seeing so far in the trailer for the Witcher series, I don't want to set myself up for repeated exposure to what should be kept sacred to another marriage. So stamp this one with a big "we'll see" as far as I'm concerned. My number 2 is a whole bunch of stuff. I'm just going to wrap all of number 2 up by saying Marvel Phase 4. Kevin Feige, the mastermind that kind of coordinates and orchestrates, you know, all these movies and makes sure they all happen the way, you know, that they should or whatever, said it's about beginnings when talking about Phase 4 in an interview. That's why there's not going to be an Avengers movie. He was basically giving off the vibe that we're starting kind of over again and we're ramping things up again. And that, I think, might be jarring for some viewers and might be a little bit jarring for me. I was just getting to the point where I was like really liking Marvel movies again as they were ramping up and culminating in the last 2 Avengers movies. And now it looks like we're going to be... Boy, do I have a little piece of hair in my mouth? I think I did. Now it looks like this might be a quieter time, not just in terms of frequency of releases, but in the properties that are involved in the Marvel movies, at least. Just going through, they've got movie releases planned for Phase 4, and they've got TV shows for Disney's new streaming service, Disney Plus. I'll go through the releases chronologically, and then at the end I'll mention the stuff that is planned but doesn't have dates assigned to it yet, so those things could fall anywhere in this timeline. But the known timeline so far is May 2020, we're getting Black Widow. This movie is confirmed to be a prequel taking place right after the events of Captain America Civil War. It's going to feature multiple Black Widows and is likely going to be setting up a new Black Widow character that's going to be carrying on from here as the original actress steps down. Good luck making me care on this one. I really think they should have made a Black Widow movie earlier on, before they kind of sunsetted the main cast of Avengers, you know, in the recent movies. So, see, I'm trying to dance around spoilers for Infinity War. I don't know if I'll be able to successfully, so turn back now if you haven't seen Infinity War, and you want to be absolutely sure that you don't get any spoilers. Anyway, fall 2020 is going to be on Disney Plus, The Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think that show, I mean, man, if they can make us care about these kind of fringy characters or these new characters and stuff, then more power to them. But they're really going to be starting from scratch, I think, in a lot of ways. For me, I can only imagine this show being a constant reminder of Cap's absence, you know, that we don't have Captain America around anymore. So, wow, good luck. Good luck with that. And then November 2020 is going to be The Eternals, to which and I'm sure many people are saying, who? Yes, I mean, I've learned a little bit about who the Eternals are, but I mean, let's face it, compared to the first three phases of the Marvel Universe, who a lot of people are going to say, well, I think I've heard of Iron Man, or I know who the Hulk is, but the Eternals, like, man, they're really kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of non-comic book fan recognition, So, could it be a Guardians of the Galaxy situation where, like, we take this very unknown property and do something with it that's really interesting, that really captures the attention and sense of fun and enjoyment of audience members? Yeah, I mean, sure, they've done it before. They could do it again. But can they do that with all of these? I mean, here, I'm going to go down the list some more. February 2021, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Who the crap is Shang-Chi? I have never heard of this guy, and I'm not a Marvel fan, but I am a comic book fan, and I'm familiar with a number of Marvel characters. So, yeah, and the Legend of the Ten Rings, I hear that they're going to be bringing back the Mandarin, and it's going to be the proper Mandarin, not the fake Mandarin. Or the second Mandarin that was revealed in Iron Man 3, which I guess is also turning out to be another fake Mandarin. No, this is the Mandarin for realsies this time, kids. And I see what they're doing. They're leveraging once again the Iron Man and his popularity, and I think they should do that. That makes sense. But man, that's interesting. And good luck. And then spring 2021. WandaVision is coming to Disney Plus. I don't know how both of those characters are going to be involved in this series after the events of the last two Avengers movies, but I hope they both are, and I hope we see both of them in Marvel movies in the future. This could be a great show. I mean, I think that they were getting a good relationship thing going with those two. I think it could have been given so much more time that I would have appreciated it having, but it didn't get. So I don't know. We'll in the movies. I mean, that the relationship between Scarlet Witch and the Vision. So I'm curious. It could be great, and I would love to see both of those characters back in the movies. Loki is also coming spring 2021 to Disney Plus. I'm not particularly a Loki fan. I personally think Loki works best with Thor, So I think a lot of people are probably going to like this movie, this show, find it funny and interesting. Who knows what kooky adventures he'll get himself mixed up in, so I say good luck to it. It probably won't be for me. May 2021 brings something that I think will be for me, and that's Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I'm in. And from what I hear, the Scarlet Witch is in this movie too, which I think is a great choice, a great pairing there. So, yeah, I have no idea what that is going to involve, aside from what the title suggests, but I really did enjoy the original Doctor Strange movie, and so I am ready for more. Summer 2021 brings What If to the Disney Plus streaming service. In the comics, the what ifs are usually one-shot stories that take events from the past and say, what if it went differently? Events from Marvel's past. What if such and such character had lived instead of died? Or what if such and such character had died instead of lived? Or what if it turns out they were a Skrull or something like that? Crazy stuff. So I think it's probably going to be like an anthology show where, each episode is a totally different what if type of premise. I think, the premise alone provides the opportunity for retired or dead Avengers to return. But I doubt that's going to happen. I mean, it wasn't just for plot reasons that they were exiting and sunsetting a bunch of these original heroes. It's because they're getting older or because the actors want to move on and do other things. And by the time they got to that point, their contracts, it's going to cost a lot of money to get them to put those suits on again, just because of, what their careers have become with those characters and what they would probably demand to play those characters again, and in a little TV show or streaming series or something like that. I think much more likely, unfortunately, is just going to be a bunch of one-shots about fringe characters, or fringe sections of the Marvel Universe. I just don't think that... I don't know. I think it's probably going to be maybe have the appeal of another Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that kind of is playing around in the more fringy corners of the Marvel Universe. But I don't know that it's going to really do what it potentially could do, because those what-if stories are about taking really well-known characters, really well-known events, and doing something different with them. And I just don't know how they're going to do that, because the really well-known characters... are done, you know. So anyway, fall 2021, we've got Hawkeye coming to Disney Plus, another TV series. Just seems to be trying to keep the original team members that you know, are not the super mega, you know, are not being created by super megastar actors that they, you know, can't afford anymore. They're just seems like they're kind of keeping the old members on life support. I don't know. They're going to have to make me care. I mean, that's the story with so many of these, is like, we'll see, good luck making me care, you know, and that, I don't say that like, good luck making me care, you know. I really, you know, am open to them making me care, because they've done that. They've surprised me in the past, making me care about characters I wouldn't have before, you know. But that is the burden that they have in front of them, I think, with a lot of these, you know, is to have a whole show hang on Hawkeye, and him training a new Hawkeye that we're supposed to care about now. I mean, I don't think they invested enough time in the original Hawkeye to make me really be invested in him as much as I wanted to be. And finally, of the dated movies, November 2021, Thor: Love and Thunder. Now, I didn't like Thor Ragnarok. A lot of people did. I think it was probably the most popular one. And that director and that style are going to be returning for Thor: Love and Thunder. But I might enjoy a Natalie Portman Thor taking over. Apparently, her character in the comics at one point did become Thor. Maybe is Thor right now. I'm not sure what's going on. But they are doing that in the movies. That makes sense, given where the Chris Hemsworth Thor character kind of ended up in the movies. But so I'm really interested in it, and because maybe she'll be more serious. I don't know, probably not in the movie directed by the same guy who did Ragnarok. But I'm also thinking to myself, ooh, Natalie Portman, get ready to bulk up, girl. I mean, she's a small woman. She is not large and you know, of intimidating stature. And so I'm curious what the execution on that is going to be like. I guess I can see it being comical, and maybe that's the direction they're going to go, but I hope not. I hope that she's a strong female character. You know, Marvel seems to be wanting to do that these days. This is an opportunity to do that and carry things forward with Thor. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Undated, and of more interest to me probably, Guardians Volume 3, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. That series has been growing on me, and so I am interested to see, you know, where they'll go with it, if they can continue to pull me in a little bit deeper to care about those characters. I think that's very possible after the events of the Avengers movies. So we'll see. Black Panther 2, yeah, bring it on. But at the same time, good luck recapturing lightning in a bottle. You know, that movie was such a phenomenon. I wonder if they understand what they need to do in order to repeat the success of the first one, or if it was just an unintended, mix of elements that ultimately made that movie such a standout film and enjoyed by so many. We will see, but I'm hopeful. I really enjoyed the first one. And Captain Marvel 2, did not enjoy the first one. Please make me care about this character. Please make her more likable. Please make her more humble. Please make her, more likable. That's all I have to say about that. And then movies that were name-dropped, but have no indication of even if they will for sure be in Phase 4 or not. Blade, starring, I'm going to get his name wrong, Mahershala Ali, who I only know well from the TV series The 4400 way back in the day, where he played a somewhat timid or uncertain character, if I recall, so it's hard for me right now seeing him as Blade, but maybe he's done a bunch of other stuff since then that makes it easier for others to see him that way. I'm very curious about what he's going to do. It's going to be a long wait for this one. It is not even going to be a part of Phase 4. That's been confirmed. Possibly / hopefully in Phase 4 still could be Fantastic Four and X-Men, which Feige kind of name-dropped and hinted at. You know, he said, we didn't even have time in this panel to talk about Fantastic Four and mutants, which he later confirmed is interchangeable in his mind with the X-Men, you know. These are the most well-known properties that Marvel has right now for the movies, apart from Spider-Man. And I don't see any indications that Spider-Man is going to be swinging around and appearing in these other movies, which I think would really help them, honestly, if he kind of took on that new Iron Man role of showing up in other people's movies to get people in the seats, because his movies are doing really well. I love the 2 Spider-Man movies that Tom Holland has been in so far, and so I really think that Sony and Marvel should just make it happen to get him in as many places in the DC universe, or the Marvel universe, as possible right now. I think that as far as Fantastic Four and X-Men go, they could hang the future of the MCU on these properties. These are huge and really recognizable properties, but they've really got to get their butts moving, or they're going to, I think, risk a season of decreased interest in Marvel movies, if they don't execute on really making all of these, fourth tier fringe Marvel properties really engaging, then we could see a slump coming for Marvel. I don't know, at least in the theaters. These movies, I think, get hyped, or at least they did before Marvel really picked up steam. They get hyped by fans who communicate that hype, and general audiences kind of pick up on that hype, and then that gets butts in seats, and it gets people to see, oh, these movies are cool, But I am wondering, as I kind of mentioned before, can all of these kind of D-list properties be Guardians of the Galaxy? Can they be presented in such a way that that people who've never heard of them suddenly think, dang, this is awesome? I don't know. I have my doubts that they can successfully do that with so many, fourth tier or D-list properties. So, man, I really hope they get moving on Fantastic Four and X-Men and do great things with those properties, because they could ensure that the Marvel Universe doesn't lose any steam. On a somewhat tangential note, man, I'm thinking to myself, if DC could have had their act together, now would have been a great time to swoop in with a bunch of movies about really well-known superheroes that people go, I don't know who the Eternals are or who Shang-Chi is, but I freaking know who Green Lantern is. I know who the Flash is. Holy crap, yeah, let me go see that, and what's this about, And I think that they still could swoop in like that if Marvel takes too long with Fantastic Four and X-Men, and these other movies aren't loved by viewers, but I'm doubtful. It's going to be really interesting to see how that all plays out. All right, but finally, my number one thing that I'm most interested in after seeing it at the ComiCon coverage and stuff online is Terminator Dark Fate, and the sneak peek that we were given for that one. I am definitely a Terminator fan, and kind of in the same way that I'm an Alien fan. I definitely am more of a Terminator franchise fan than an Alien franchise fan, but for the same reason, each movie in the Alien series is significantly different from the others. And so are the Terminator movies. I do have favorites among them, but I think they all have value, Even some that were like, oh man, Terminator 3 was awful, or Terminator Salvation was awful, Terminator 3 is probably my least favorite, but Salvation, I really found a lot to enjoy in. Genesis, I really found some interesting things to enjoy, They're not my favorites of the movies, but I think they all have value, and I appreciate them all fitting in one wacky continuity. Oh crap, I've spent too much time talking. I gotta get to do something else pretty soon. Anyway, I don't mind them monkeying with the timeline, as they did with Genesis, because this is time travel, so of course they're going to be monkeying with the timeline. But I don't want them, as it seems they might be doing with Dark Fate, to pretend that only Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 are canonical now, and just ask audience members, you need to ignore Terminator 3, Terminator Salvation, and Terminator Genesis. You need to ignore more than half of the Terminator movies that have been released so far. As a part of, a prerequisite for taking in this movie. I'm really not a fan of that. Instead, I would rather they make a movie that leaves the question of which movies are canonical open, so that people who don't like certain movies, can say, oh, I'll just pretend that one didn't happen, it still works, or people who did like those movies can say, oh yeah, it still fits with those movies, and they can still, in their own head canon, have whatever canonical movies they want. So we'll see, how explicit they are with their treatment of the canon. I was hoping that we could interpret Dark Fate as taking place decades after Genesis, when the rebooted Sarah Connor is now much older and so is being played by Linda Hamilton again. But Edward Furlong is returning as John Connor. We don't know how much of the movie he's going to be in, but that does make me wonder if there will be room for the interpretation that I want. Those issues aside, this movie looks just like more great Terminator action for me. James Cameron has been hyping it up, but that's meaningless to me because they bring him out to hype all of these movies, and it feels like every time he says, this is the one that really honors the original movies, But when Linda Hamilton said in an interview that character is important and comes before and motivates the action in this movie, I'm inclined to believe her. Maybe, she'll betray that trust, but I'm hopeful. And since it will have an R rating, I'm also hopeful that the Terminators will be suitably scary again. Arnold Schwarzenegger, speaking of Terminators, returns as one, but if what past, if any, that he shares with Sarah is unclear. It's also unclear why he's been quietly aging out in a secluded cabin, so I don't know what's going on there. I'm interested in the answers to those questions. I was hoping for a twist in the use of Arnold Schwarzenegger in this movie. I was hoping that he would play not a Terminator, but the man that the Terminators were modeled after. But that isn't the case. So instead, I hope, and I know you guys aren't going to like this, but I hope he will end the movie as a bad guy, as a bad Terminator out to kill, and that has to be put down. This is likely his last time as the Terminator, I would guess. Of course, I thought last movie was his last time as the Terminator, but we'll see. So I think that taking him back to his roots as like the source of danger, the source of horror in the Terminator franchise would be a shocking and bold move and a fitting send-off for him, bringing his work with that character kind of full circle. But I think audiences would probably hate it. I think they've come to like him as the kind of likable, grumpy Terminator, and these movies haven't been known for like challenging viewers and how they feel about the story, so I really, really doubt they'll do that, but personally, I would really like that. Whatever the case, I think that I'm very likely to enjoy this movie for what it is, whatever it is, and as I've come to enjoy the other movies for just the unique approaches that they take with the franchise and the material. So count me in, take my money. I can already smell that popcorn, so bring it on. All right, that's it for me. What did you find that was most interesting or exciting out of all the news and trailers that came out of Comic-Con? Let me know in the comments below, and then I hope you'll join us sometime soon over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. We've got a ton going on here at Spirit Blade Productions and Christian Geek Central, including our in-depth Bible study for geeks, movie, game, and other entertainment reviews or commentary, live streams, Christian geek news, original audio dramas, and tons more. And on top of all that, you can become a Spirit Blade insider with an influential voice and get access to exclusive content and rewards. It's your involvement as a patron that will keep all of this going and growing, so I want to thank you for your consideration in that. For more information, please check out our Patreon page through the link below at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. Thanks for listening.